GvG has a lot of bad legendaries. Most cards you probably forgot about because you never see them. So I made it my mission today to include all those cards in different decks and make them work. Kinda. Which one is the most useful card? Which one surprises you here and there? And we'll also see how useless most of these cards are. We're gonna start with Druid, Murloc, a 9/7. A beast, beautiful card that you can spend only 7 mana on for 9 attack. That is a good deal. Until the card just dies. But then, it gets shuffled back into your deck. I thought a mix of Hedonox and N'Zoth would be a good game plan. It's like Jade Idol with extra steps. It's great. Until you realize that the card doesn't have taunt and the opponent can just bully you by playing better cards. Also, my opponent proceeded to do this. I haven't seen the Jailer card before. I didn't know the card is in the game. And I was quite surprised to see Bolt Ramshield being useful. Which means Nexus Hunter, Gazrilla, a 6/9. Nice stats that doubles their attack every single time it gets damaged. I had a great plan for this one. You play Beastmaster Leorox, summon this from your hand for free with a Tundra Rhino, but then I thought, let's deviate from the plan against this mage. So I played the card normally, and for some reason the card just survived. With a simple quick aimed shots of Ratata, we make it a 48 attack minion, and they concede. I would give this card actually like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Because if your opponent doesn't kill this minion, then this one just means they die next turn. And I like that. Next up is the Mage Legendary. Do you know what it is? It is Flame Leviathan. Yay. What a card. It dealt 2 damage. I got reminded what the legendary for Paladin was in this set. It's a 1/7. Every single time a minion dies, while this card is in your hand, it gets +1 attack. Now we have a keyboard for that now called Infuse, but why update old cards? So this one gets +1 attack, right? I thought, let's play a bunch of dudes in Paladin. Play the dudes die, you can buff the guys, and who doesn't like buff guys? This only works when the card is in your hand. Do you know how difficult it is to have one specific card in your hand? It's quite difficult. So the only match where I drew this card in, and I tried this like 8 or 9 times, was against somebody who wasn't the biggest challenge. Thanks to the power of a 1/7 for 5 mana without effect, we managed to win that game. They should give this card a rush or charge or something to make it useful. But it has been over 8 years, so I think they won't. And Priest is a card that you might remember. We have the Shadow Man. The Shadow Man reads, let's swap this health with the health of a different minion. And I always liked the effect because it seemed like a unique enough effect for a legendary while not being overpowered but not being too bad at the same time. I wouldn't suggest that you play it in any deck, but if you like fun cards, this one might be one for you. Trade Prince Gallywix, one of the best intro lines of all time. So I got 2 spells, one of them being a coin. They got 2 coins, you know, we're trading here, it's the Trade Prince. And for the flavor, the stats and the effect, that's a great card. Honestly, design-wise, that's probably a 10 out of 10 for this whole set. But then the opponent tried to gonk, so they set everything up, they had 25 attack, and they ran out of time and then, out of courtesy, conceded. They would have won anyways, but hey, free win. In Shaman though, we get a 7/7 for 7 mana that reads Overload, a lot, but you get 4 Murlocs. Seems like a fair trade. I finally had a moment. I could play Neptulon, the Lord of the Sea, and he is just mega thin, but in a lot worse. And if you think about value here, you include 1 card, but you get 4. That's 4x on your investment. So I would actually say Neptulon is like a 3 out of 10. Mal'Ganis, the big man that reads, you don't take damage. And in some cases, that is very helpful. Now a few years ago, I always used to play Warlock with Voidcaller into Voidlord or Voidcaller into Mal'Ganis. So I built a pretty similar deck, and I faced an aggressive rogue deck, and I was like, ooh, that seems like a good challenge. After summoning the big taunty boy, I was down, but then I drew a certain card, which then got summoned, which then led me to top deck another card that reads, draw 3 and don't take any damage. And then you can tap, just because it's free. And it felt so good to play. I would say so far for the class legendaries, this has to be the best one, but the best golden animation is not for Mal'Ganis. It's for Iron Juggernaut. You have the small bomb mans that shuffle a deal 5 damage card into the enemy's deck, and then you have the big boy that shuffles a deal 10 damage card into the enemy's deck. And after shuffling a whole bunch of things, I thought, well, this could be my lucky moment here, and this happened. They didn't draw it, obviously. But then in another game, I played the card, and they drew it immediately. So it's Battlecry deal 10 damage to the enemy's face. And that's a good card. So let's just say this one is like a 6 or 7 out of 10, which leads us to the neutral legendaries. Blingtron. I always like the card because you not just get a golden card for free, but it's also random. It's not a good card obviously, but you could get lucky. And because the game is pretty random anyways, you never know what happens. And then for one of, if not the worst legendary in the whole set, Hammett. It is unlikely enough that the opponent even plays a beast, And when they play a beast, you still have a 6-3. I mean, like, it just dies. And despite him killing the beast, you might just lose to the exact same beast that he once killed. But now let's focus on the head. Mimran's head. When you have this card and a couple other mechs and they survive for a turn, you summon the VOL Voltron, the big man, the Mega Wind Fury, deal at least 16 damage face charge card. And while I was playing Mech Mage to make this card and a couple others work, I noticed that it's not even that unlikely that you have a couple mechs with this card survive and stick on the bot. So I summoned Voltron probably like 4 or 5 times within 10 games. Gazlowe, 6 mana 3/6. You play a spare part or 1-cost spell and you get a random mech. And I managed to get 4 random mechs. Wow. I know, you are impressed as well. This is just play York. Forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned, but I played Big Priest. But I get a whole bunch of ogres, and the ogres made it so that there's a 50-50 coin flip if you hit the right target, or you don't and then you do. Because for some reason they just redirected all the attacks into my face, which is smart because then ogre survives. And for that I give him 5 stars. Then we had Toshli. Toshli gives you a spare part, and when he dies, you get a spare part. You could even play this card, it just won't have a big impact. Unless the following scenario happens. You get the best spare part and you get stealth for 1 turn, you have a full board of garbage minions, and then you discover a Necrotic Geist, which means you can play that card, which is also really bad, and then you trade your garbage, summon a bunch of tutus, and then you give stealth to your Geist. How often does that happen? Well, it did happen in this video. Toshli is pretty good. As for Dr. Boom, he's probably still the most solid card that you can play. Now, he is too slow for any deck nowadays, but he's still not that bad. And if your opponent decides to do whatever my opponent did, then they not just lose, but they also lose with an empty battlefield, thanks to your boombots. But next is Troxo. My opponent was a fun typer druid, where you get 2.5k armor, but you have to use a whole bunch of spells to draw your deck. What happens when you have Troxo against that? Well, you summon the small troglodytes and they all get attack. Then you have a bot that deals like 200 plus damage a turn with a Wind Fury man, and despite 2.5k armor, they can't really do much, can they? So in this case, Trog, good job. I like him. But then there's a card that is definitely not a top 3, and that is Foe Reaper. And the Foe Reaper deals damage not just to you in the middle, but left and right as well. Adjacent minions. Now I thought again, well, let's resummon this minion in Big Priest. The only moment where I could attack with this card was this, where I attacked and then killed Malygos. Now how many mechs do you know that killed Malygos? And then we have Sneeds. I like Sneeds. Sneeds means random, so you could get something quite valuable. For example, you could get maybe a Gonk, and then maybe with the power of Gonk, your opponent eventually fatigues and concedes. Or you could play a combo, play Sneeds, Umbra, and Carnivorous Cube. And you know what happens? This is what happens. And because they probably don't kill Sneeds on your turn anyways, this could be a good way to fill the entire board with a bunch of random. Sneeds is in my heart as one of the best cards in this set. And then lastly, a card that you probably forgot that it even existed. It's called Magenia Termaplug. 9 mana, 9/7, minion dies, summon a Lebanon. The only way that I ever tried to make this card work was with the following combo. You can give your opponent Grim Patron. You summon your Magenia. You use Elven Archer on the patron. Then you have a 1/2/3. You use give your minion immune, and then you can see what happens when you play the file. Their patrons die. When their patrons die, you get a Lepanome. When your Lepanome dies, they take damage, but eventually, after everybody got in here, you deal enough damage to win the game. This one is like a 0 out of 10 card. No. Anyways, for my rating of all the cards, my top 3. Mal'Ganis, I like Iron Juggernaut, and then I would probably say that Voltron, or Mimran's Hat, belongs on the list. Because now with all the mech support in Paladin as well as Mage, it is not that difficult to summon Voltron. And the animation is cool. The worst cards in here, like Bolvar and Hammett, there's just no deck where these cards actually make sense to play. The 2 biggest surprises though, Trade Prince Gallywix, especially against all the mages and druids, and then also Gazrilla. Because if they can't remove it, you might just win the next turn. When I tried all those decks and played the game, I had fun. So I think I should do this again, maybe next week, in this series, which is called Testing the Set. Maybe make it a series, maybe not, I don't know. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and take care.